Hello everybody and welcome back to Soul Stained Ink. My name is Beth and today I'm going to do a very quick little overview review of The Young Bride by Alessandro Barrico. I believe the original publication of The Young Bride was in the early months of 2015. However, Alessandro Barrico is an Italian author and this was originally published in Italian. So this particular translation was done by Anne Goldstein for Europa Editions and they published it just this past month, July 19th of 2016. And normally at this point, I would go into telling you all about the different characters and just how they behave and all the different pieces of the story. And I'm not sure that I can do that with this book. The book is narrated by the young bride, and she is now older and she is a writer and she is kind of looking back and telling her story. However, it is kind of convoluted and it jumps back and forth between present day and the time of the story that she is telling. And there's actually a little confusion in several places as to whether or not the young bride is actually the narrator. She switches pronouns around, just kind of uses them however she wants to. And I think that's part of the charm of the story is that it, for me anyway, it feels very Italian. Um, I've heard just, in movies and television shows and the random, like, 3 Italian people I've met in my life that were actually from Italy, I've heard them talking, and it's very much carried on in the way that this book carries itself. So that felt very true to the heritage and nature of the residents of the book, of the characters of the book. However, for someone who is from Texas and Oklahoma, it was very difficult, and it took me several weeks. I think I received it 2 weeks before publication, and it is now a week, 10 days after publication, and I just finished it yesterday. However, here's what I do know. The young bride and the son of the family that she is marrying into made a pact with each other that they were going to get married. And she was 14, I think, 14 or 15, and he was at the time 16 or 17. And so her family was moving to Argentina, and they made a pact that when she reached the age of 18, they were going to get married. And so on her 18th birthday, she packed up, she left Argentina, left her family, and went back to Italy in order to kind of show up at the son's house. Now, nobody in the family gets names. So through the entire book, you are talking about the father, the mother, the young bride, the daughter, the uncle, um, and then the servant of the house, the kind of butler manservant. He has a name. His name is Modesto. Um, and then when it flashes to the present time, she is talking about different people that she's worked with, and they either have letters, so they're designated, there's a woman named L, just the letter L, or they have titles similar to the family in that, like, there is the doctor or the serving man. So most people don't have names, and the family itself is just very odd. The son is not there when she gets there. Um, the daughter is often talked about as being beautiful, but then when she gets up, she had an accident, and so she kind of pulls a leg behind her. She's got some nerve damage. The uncle sleeps all the time, but knows what's going on around him, so he'll wake up and have some sort of amazing insight and wisdom and then go back to sleep. The father has a weak heart, and the mother is so beautiful that she just, like, makes men fall in love with her, and women too just randomly fall in love with her. Um, and they are afraid of the night. Like, they're going to die at night. Everybody dies at night, and they're afraid of it. I'm really not sure that I would classify this as magical realism. It feels like it kind of wants to be at some places, but there's not ever really a magical being or anything of that nature that enters the scene. It might be slightly fabulous, but I don't know. It's very Italian, so that could just kind of be the vibes that I'm feeling. Like I have said previously in like reading vlogs and Friday reads, this book was very difficult for me to get through, not because it's not well written. It is. When I finally hit after page 61, I got stuck on page 61 for about a week. When I finally hit about page 63, I went from page 63 to page 99 in about half an hour. I just really, it's a quick read if you can stomach it, if you can take in what's being said and you can understand it, and you don't need to stop and breathe and try to think, because that's what was happening the first part of the book, and actually a little bit more in the later part of the book. I was getting bogged down with the way they were speaking to each other, the way it was written, all of the little bits of information that were coming in, because this is a translated piece of fiction. I don't typically read translated works because of just the odd way that the sentence structure is. And this has no chapter breaks. This has barely any page breaks. So you read a section of a page or two, and then when there's a slightly larger space between paragraphs, you just kind of try to take a deep breath. So you're in it until you stop. So I was stopping very frequently to try to absorb everything that was going on, because typically chapter breaks and page breaks are what allow me as a reader to take a breath and absorb and then move on. And when I don't have those, I tend to go more slowly. That being said, the story itself was an interesting premise. I actually enjoyed the writing style and the way it felt, even though it did take me a little bit longer to get through. And I have given this book a 3 out of 5 stars. I kind of vacillated between like 2.5 and 3.5 stars because I did enjoy it. And there were some places where I laughed out loud, and there were some places that made me gasp. And then there were some places that I was like, oh. But there were a lot more places that bogged me down and that were more difficult for me to absorb. And part of that is on me for where I'm from and how I was raised and the books I read and the things I write. I get that. My culture and Italian culture are different, especially the Italian culture being discussed here. And I enjoyed the cultural aspects. However, putting that aside, there were still several places where I just wasn't sure of my ability to continue reading. I almost DNF'd this book twice, so I kind of split the difference and gave it the 3 stars. I enjoyed the premise, and I enjoyed probably about half to 3/4 of the writing, but there were some places that just made me almost quit the book. I think that if you enjoy a little bit more literary and dense fiction, if you enjoy vivid, erotic, it's not like hardcore erotic, but it's very vivid and it doesn't back down when it talks about things. So if you enjoy that and you can get past or enjoy the higher form literary um, translation style, then I think this book would be for you. I enjoyed it, the parts that I could get into. So I think somebody with a little bit more skill and ability for reading the translated works might enjoy it even more. I hope that that all made sense. So that is all I have for you about Alessandro Barrico and The Young Bride. I hope that you have enjoyed this little review and chat. If you have read the book or are interested in reading it, please leave me a comment down below. Don't forget to give me a big thumbs up if you like the video and subscribe if you are new. I'll see you again soon. Bye.